So, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is we have a plan, and if it all goes as smoothly and precisely as possible, tonight will be the last we spend on this god-forsaken ship. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but as uncertain as we might be, this seems like the only chance we have of making it out alive. The bad news is, what started this morning as the four of us has now ended as three. And I can't help but feel consumed with guilt because the only reason that is because I made a stupid mistake. A grade A dumbass move that most people would yell at a character in a horror movie for doing. Shit. Let me get to what you said first and foremost. I feel myself beginning to precariously dangle near to insanity, and focusing on your comments will help me from going the way of Wyatt, of mentally breaking. To the person who made the biggest and most detailed comment, many of the ideas you suggested along with the others are what is going to ultimately go into our plan. So, for that, thank you. Unfortunately, your idea about crossing out our names in the activity program, as good an idea as it was, is impossible to do. When we returned to our cabin to hold up for the night, I noticed that it had been taken. Whether that's because an action like that would have worked or not, I don't know. As much as the idea of dropping the anchor seems like a decent idea, none of us dares tread down into the crew decks and bowels of the ship again. Not after yesterday. As for the idea of holy water, while I may consider myself a believer, it's been many years since I've stepped inside a church, let alone kneeled down and prayed. Any power of faith I might have is so damn weak it'd effectively be like flicking the nose of a hungry tiger and hoping it'll make it go away. And the others, as far as I know, are not religious types. There's others who've said things I appreciate, but I should and need to tell you about today. When the four of us first woke up, nobody said a word. The first few days aboard, we'd all gather round and discuss aloud what the plan for the day was. Now, though, after the horrific and soul-destroying things we saw yesterday, any attempt at conversation seems pointless. Without any prompting from anyone, I booted up the laptop and, hoping against hope that someone might have an idea, which would germinate into an escape plan. I felt the numbness which had settled over me lift somewhat as I scrolled through your comments. My eyes flickered over the suggestions, and I began to open my mouth to call for the others to join me. But I shut it just as quickly, seeing the comment one of you made about the spectres likely listening to us. I silently cursed myself as a realization hit me. They're right. They've likely been listening to us this entire time, and it's been how they've managed to always stay a step ahead of us. Just because we can't see them, doesn't mean they aren't there. The thought made me cast a wary and somewhat paranoid eye to the far corners of the cabin, ones that filled the shadows that even the bedside lamps couldn't banish. The mental image of a grinning face slowly appearing out from the gloom swam forward in my mind, and I felt myself begin to breathe quicker. I forced it away, willing myself to calm down. Instead, I snapped my fingers and beckoned the others to join me. Putting a finger to my lips, I pointed to the screen. The others crowded around me and read as I silently scrolled past the suggestions. Then, fumbling around for a moment, I found some stationery likely once used to send letters while abroad, along with a pen. I hastily scribbled down a message and passed it around to the others. Any of these ideas seem good to you? After a moment, the three of them took turns writing things down quickly before sliding the paper back to me. Bending over, I saw the ideas about jumping from the stern of the ship, ejecting as many lifeboats as possible to use, and even feigning insanity to throw chairs and tables overboard to use as flotation were all ideas they liked. Okay now, we're getting somewhere, I thought, feeling a little lighter. Until I saw the final thing my crewmates had written. The idea of burning the ship, making her catch fire like she did in the 70s. I looked up, arching my eyebrow and gesturing to the line. I saw Andrew and Spencer immediately nod enthusiastically. Vinny, however, looked unsure as I felt inside. I remembered what Wyatt had babbled to us before throwing himself overboard. If they got that pissed off just over the suggestion to rob them, and even more about trying to sabotage the engines, what'll they do to us if we try and set the ship on fire? In my heart of hearts, I knew it was a bad idea. I knew that as a captain second in command, I was de facto leader now. Even if the ship I would have been leader of was long gone. But I also knew that if I tried to force the others away, there might be another fight, one that could clue our hosts aware of our intentions. So, instead, I quickly jotted down another note. I honestly don't know if you're trying to burn the ship is a good idea, but I'll put it to a vote. If you want to burn the ship, write an X beneath this. If you don't, draw a circle. Quickly I drew a circle and passed the paper to them. Andrew and Spencer scribbled their answers down instantly. Vinny took a little while longer, all the while shooting glances at the others who gave him almost judgmental eyes. Finally he took the pen and jotted his answer down, passing the paper back to me. 3 X's stood beside my circle. Shit. I took a deep breath and looked at them. I knew I'd been right. Any attempt to dissuade them would make things worse. But was making things worse now worse than what might come? I didn't have a chance to ponder that for long as I saw the others regarding the map of the ship. Andrew's face lit up as he tapped a half-moon-shaped room at the very front of the promenade deck, one that was marked Observation Lounge. He tapped at the label below it, Cocktail Bar. I knew what they wanted to go there for. Alcohol, which they could make into Molotov cocktails. I shut the laptop down and closed it up as they stood moving to the door as quietly as possible. As they did, the memory of being called to through the door suddenly forced its way to the front of my mind. I remembered hearing the 3 voices calling to me. First Will. You guys have got to come out and come to the party. You'll see what you've been afraid for no reason. Everyone here is so damn nice. Trust me, it's so much better than going back to the world we came from. Then the woman, Diana. Come on out, boys. You have no idea the wonderful things you'll see. It's bloody beautiful. Then finally the words that had followed me into my dreams, my nightmares. Those of the captain speaking directly to me. Nathan, we were so wrong to have been afraid of them. This place is amazing and the ship is only the beginning. There's a whole other world beyond it, one so much better than what we left. I know it hurt you to see me die, but I'm okay now, I promise. Please, open the door and come and have a drink with me. I didn't know whether it truly had been the man I'd looked up for so long, or just another facsimile to torment me. I don't know which would be worse. I was snapped out of my thoughts as the sound of the cabin door being unlocked reached my ears. Looking up, I saw Andrew peek out the small opening before looking back and flashing the OK sign. He pulled the door all the way open and, leading the way, stepped out of the room. Spencer immediately followed behind and Vinny gave me a last pained look before gesturing for me to follow. And after a moment, I did. The hallway was deserted as we slowly made our way towards the staircase to the upper decks. As we walked, I noticed with growing unease and yes, dread that there seems to be more signs of life on the ship than there had been when we first arrived. Sets of period shoes, ranging from men's wingtips to women's high heels, had been left out in the hall next to the closed cabin doors for someone to come and shine them. Ashtrays we passed contained cigarette butts, and as we stepped onto the landing, I saw a sign on the concierge desk that read, "Sorry, we've stepped out for a moment, we'll be back shortly." It's like the ship is slowly coming back to life. Like the ghosts on board are becoming more active the more the ship steams along. The thought caused another shiver to shoot up my spine. I couldn't understand why I'd had that thought. Not right at that moment anyways. We climbed the stairs until we reached the landing to the promenade deck. I had been looking down at the steps as I climbed, lost in thought while I accidentally walked straight into Vinny's back. I stumbled backwards a little, feeling as though I was about to begin tumbling back down the stairs like a scene from a comedy movie. My nose painfully throbbed, and I shot a look up. All 3 men had come to a dead stop, looking down the hallway to the right at something I couldn't see. And despite our situation, a pang of irritation bubbled up inside me, and I pushed past Vinny, beginning to speak in a whisper. "Why the hell did you guys?" But my words died in my throat as I saw what they'd been looking at, or to be more precise, what they weren't looking at. The captain's body was gone. From where we stood, we could plainly see the entrance to the lounge where he'd been killed. We could even see the bloodstain which had still stained the carpet, a mop and bucket standing next to it as if someone had been about to try cleaning it up. But the captain's body no longer lay there. And to make matters worse, there didn't appear to be any sign he'd been dragged off. It was as if he'd just vanished. Dread and tension permeated the air as we stared, and I felt the biggest chill yet run up my spine as I imagined the man's bloody corpse standing on the other side of the cabin door and knocking, a smile on his face. "Come on," Andrew finally whispered, and then moved forward, heading for the bow of the ship. As we followed the signs of the observation deck and cocktail bar, I began to feel surer and surer that this wasn't just a big mistake. This was going to be a fatal one. Along with it came a new feeling, a new thought. Why the hell am I just playing along with this malarkey? The captain chose me because I always knew what's best. I'm letting him down by doing this. That thought was what decided it, for me. I picked up the pace and sped past the 3, coming to stop in the middle of the hallway and shooting my arms out to the side to block the way. I spoke, my voice low. "Guys, no." I saw surprise enter Vinny's face, but on Andrew and Spencer's, I saw irritation and even anger flash. "Get the hell out of the way, Nate," Spencer hissed. I shook my head. No, doing this is the worst idea in the long, sad history of bad ideas. We don't know what they'll do if we try and set the place on fire. Andrew's nostrils flared. I don't give a fuck what they think of us burning their precious ocean liner to embers. We're doing it. Now, get the fuck out of my way before I make you move. Veins popped out on his forehead. I could see any rational side of him had been overtaken by emotion. He wasn't thinking. He wanted to lash out one final time at them for the deaths of our crewmates. I knew what would come next, but I didn't budge, instead shaking my head and standing my ground. Even though I anticipated it, the punch still caught me half by surprise. Didn't realise just how strong Andrew was, with how wiry of a build he had. I crashed into a heap on the floor, my head smashing into the wooden wall as he loomed over me, fists balled as if ready to take another swing at me. He leaned down and got right in my face, spit striking my nose and cheeks as he spat at me. Stay the fuck out of my way. This is being done whether you like it or not. And with that he strode past me, Spencer only stopping to spit at me before following. I looked up at Vinny, feeling a small trickle of blood began dripping from just above my eyebrow where Andrew's ring had caught me. Please, don't, I pleaded for a moment. He looked like he wanted to agree with me, then he shook his head, his shoulders slumping as he succumbed to peer pressure from the others. "I'm sorry," he whispered softly before following after them. I turned and watched him hurry down the hall before disappearing out of sight around a corner. I fought the urge to scream after them. As angry and hopeless as I felt, I didn't want to bring the spectral horde their way. "You stupid fucks," I whispered to myself before slowly hauling myself to my feet. I stood there, trying to calm myself for a moment. It felt almost impossible to do, and in the heat of the moment, I made the grade A mistake I will forever regret. The one that will eat away at my soul forever. I didn't follow after them. Instead, I turned and stalked away in the opposite direction. The rational side of my brain screamed at me how dumb an idea this was this way. "What are you doing? You're not supposed to split up. This is leaving you so damn vulnerable and open." But I didn't care. The anger, it had consumed me, silenced my inner warnings, and as I walked back onto the landing, I stopped there, breathing heavily. I again cursed the others. "You fucking morons." As I stood there, trying to compose myself, a familiar but most unwelcome feeling washed over me again. A massive shiver shot up my spine as a feeling of eyes boring into the back of my skull came. Almost at once, the anger and rage disappeared, washed away by a surge of fear and terror. Oh, hell, dude. Slowly, I turned to look behind me, and I felt my blood run cold at what I saw. Standing almost directly on the spot where the captain's body had been lying, in the middle of the bloodstain, was one of the shadowy figures. It stood, dead, still, and even though it had no face, I could tell from the feeling I'd had that it was looking directly at me. Then a new fear began to flood into me, one that came with a thought that, try as I might, I couldn't push away. What if that's the captain? I let out a gasp, feeling my heart begin the beat harder in my chest. I couldn't take the thought that I might be about to be attacked by the spirit of the man I'd looked up to as a father figure for so long. So I turned, hurried in the opposite direction, heading for the stern. The feeling of being watched intensified though as I hurried down the hall, and I mentally cursed myself for letting my emotions lead me to such a dangerous spot. Stupid. I shot glances over my shoulder, feeling that at any moment I'd see the figure shoot round the corner in pursuit of me, or worse, see all of them appear. I looked around frantically, trying to find some place I could duck into to potentially hide. A sign appeared, hanging down from the ceiling with an arrow pointing to the right. Theatre. Not knowing where else to go, I jogged right until I saw the large door with an identical sign above it. Yanking open the heavy door, I jumped inside and pulled it shut behind me. Trying not to breathe loudly, I pulled back on the inner handle as hard as I could, seeing with a sinking feeling that there was no lock on this side of the door. It's not like it would do me much good if they weren't in here, but as the moments ticked by into minutes, nothing came. No force ripped the door out of my hands. I began to breathe a little easier, feeling my heartbeat begin to slow as relief swept over me. Feeling that I wasn't about to be swarmed, I finally turned around to look at the room I'd entered. I found myself staring past red drapes which had been pulled back. In the low light I saw hundreds of empty red seats stretching out away from me towards the back of the room and blue carpeting covering the floor. I only had a moment to look at the ivory white walls before I froze, realizing something. It should have been dark, almost pitch black in here. There were no windows to the outside, meaning it should have been like trying to walk around with your eyes closed. But it wasn't. And as my eyes flickered up to the back wall, I realised why. The projector was playing. I suddenly became aware of sounds playing from the speakers on the walls. A lump formed in my throat, and even though every fibre of my being told me to leave, I instead stepped from the entryway into the theatre itself, taking a half a dozen steps or so until I was halfway up the far right aisle. I turned to look at the screen. A movie was indeed playing, and not knowing what else to do, I sat down in one of the seats. I could tell the movie was old, both by the fact that it was in black and white and the scene of what had to be London in the mid-50s. I'd visited the city in 2004 as a teenager, and I instantly recognised Trafalgar Square as different as I was seeing it now. The scene began to follow a woman in a trench coat who always walked with her back to the camera as she got into a cab and was shortly dropped off. As she walked, I suddenly noticed something. The woman had very familiar platinum blonde hair hanging down to her shoulders. Instantly, the little curiosity I had vanished, and I felt a heavy pit begin to form itself in my stomach. But it was as if I had been paralysed. I could do nothing but watch as the scene continued, the woman reaching a door and attempting to open it before hiding as what looked like an old Thunderbird rounded the corner. As another woman got out and the music began to swell, I felt my heart begin to thump in my chest, dread washing over me in waves, but not because of the tension the movie was giving off. It was because I felt sure of who I was about to see. And as the blonde woman reappeared again, pulling a revolver from her purse and aiming it at her, the camera changed, revealing her face as she began to fire. I let out a strangled scream. It was her. The woman who Will had spoken about in the restaurant. The one I'd seen with her arm around him. Diana. You know, this was my proudest moment as an actress. I felt the blood drain from my face. The voice, a sultry one with an unmistakable British accent, the same one I'd heard calling to us through the door last night, hadn't come from the speakers. It had come from directly behind me. Feeling my body begin to shake as fear and adrenaline surged through my system, I slowly turned and looked behind me, where a pair of sapphire blue eyes gazed back. That did it. Whatever spell I'd been under snapped, and I leapt out of a chair, spinning to face the woman as she rose from her own. She gestured to the screen where the movie continued to play. I actually went to the big film festival in Cannes. Because of it, I felt on top of the world. She let out a small snort of laughter. Course, I didn't realise that was the highest I'd ever bloody be. The wistful look left her eyes and focused on me. Will's told me a lot about you. You know, said a lot of good things. Every fibre of my being was screaming at me to run, but it was as though I'd once again been paralysed. I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak, only stand and stare. That's when her face changed, instantly turning from the half-warm, half-eerie smile to ice. You're right, you know. Your friends are making a big mistake with their plan. Them trying to set fire to the ship is not going to work. All it's going to do is make us mad. My eyes went wide as the realization hit, renewed horror filling me. They know. And you know how we get when we get angry, Nathan. I finally managed to take a step back, seemingly able to speak again. The words of one of you that I'd often seen flash through my mind of asking these ghosts, demons, whatever, a question. My mind still screamed at me to run, but the slight hope that I could reason with them, perhaps convince them to let us go, was too much. And so I asked, my voice trembling, "What the hell do you want? What the hell do all of you want?" Instantly, I realized how dumb my choice had been as Diana began to laugh. Small sniggers at first, and then blossoming into loud giggles. They stopped as she smiled at me, one that, despite the fact it made her look strikingly beautiful, made me feel as though I wanted to scream. "We want you, Nathan. We want all of you." She took a step forward. I took a step back, my eyes flickering to the exit behind me as she spoke again. "You think the past just dies? It doesn't. It just melts away into what I can only describe as another reality, a beautiful one where nothing ever ages and nothing ever changes. One where we all stay, where everything as it was stays." She closed her eyes, shaking her head slowly. "But it gets lonely for all of us. The only bad thing about nothing ever changing is that we never see new faces, new people to meet, just the ones from where we came. The ones who've died." Her eyes flew open again, locking on me. I'd just begun to take a step back when I again felt rooted to the spot. "But we're able to come back, you see, thanks to the fact that this ship's sister still exists in your world, your time. It gives us the ability to come back, to find new people to join us in ours." Her face suddenly contorted into the most wicked, evil smirk I'd ever seen in my life. "And we're always looking for new people to join us." Her words stabbed into my soul, filling me with horror the likes I'd never felt before. In that instant, I knew there was no reasoning with them. There was no bargain that could be made for us to leave. They would never let us leave. They wanted to take us back to where God only knew. They'd done it to countless other people. How many people lost at sea due to them? I let out an involuntary gasp as I finally managed to take another step back and froze. My blood turned to ice in my veins as the realization hit me. And finally, I did scream, because Diana's eyes weren't the only ones on me anymore. There were hundreds of eyes. Hungry eyes that occupied every seat in the room. I turned and ran for the exit as every person in their seats melted into the horrific shadowy figures that had chased and terrified us ever since we'd come on board. The whispering, laughter and screaming which had plagued my nightmares was so loud in my ears, I felt as though my eardrums would burst and begin bleeding. I let out the shrillest, most high-pitched scream I ever have in my life, my arms stretching out and reaching for the door to the hallway. I slammed into it with all my might and bounced off it, crashing back onto my ass on the floor. What the fuck? I stumbled to my feet, running for the door and slamming into it again. And just like the first time, it did not budge at all. "No!" I screamed out, ramming it a third time. But the metal refused to give. It was locked. Nathan. I froze. my body beginning to violently shake as the voice reached me. A voice I knew well, a voice which had called to me through the door last night along with Diana and Will. I slowly turned to look behind me. All of the shadowy figures stood less than 10 feet away from me. The whispering, laughter, and screaming had finally stopped, allowing the speaker to be heard. One of the shadows took the first step forward, and then it spoke again. "It's time for you to join us." I turned and began hammering on the door as the captain's words echoed in my ears. Sheer terror fueling my screams. "Somebody open the fucking door!" I began to cry. This is it. These are the last moments of your life, all because you fucked up. You're dead. My mind began to shut down, trying in some physical reaction to spare me the horror that was about to happen to me. "Nate?" I snapped back to reality as a voice came from the other side of the door. For a moment, I thought I'd finally snapped like Wyatt had. Then the voice came again. "Nate? Are you in there? It's Vinny." Oh, my mind screamed at me. I began furiously pounding on the door again. Seeing out of the corner of my eye, the figures began to sweep towards me. "Vinny, unlock the door for God's sake!" I heard the sound of him fumbling with the lock. I shot a glance over my shoulder and screamed again as I saw the figures less than a foot away from me. The door wrenched open, and I was suddenly falling forwards, crashing to the floor and feeling pain as the carpet abrasion tore at my hands and my elbows. For a moment, I was unable to think. The realization that I'd been saved causing my brain to short circuit. Until the horror of realizing where Vinny stood smashed into me like a brick wall. I flipped around, my eyes wide as I screamed at my friend, "Vinny, get away from the door!" But it was too late. The only way I can describe what happened in those next moments is that it happened exactly like the scene in the 1999 remake of The House on Haunted Hill, the one where Chris Kattan's character opens the basement door to let the others out and is snatched and dragged into the evil mass inside. That's what happened to Vinny. I caught a split-second look of the horror on his face as he saw the figures reaching out to grab him. The next, he was gone. Yanked inside the theatre, the door slamming shut behind him. "Vinny!" I screamed helplessly, reaching out a hand as if I could pull him back through the door with sheer will, but nothing emerged. The ship became deathly silent again. But only for a moment. The sound of racing feet suddenly sprang up from behind me. I spun round, beginning to frantically crab walk backwards as my mind screamed at me that the figures were now coming for me. Instead, I felt a wave of shock as Andrew and Spencer flew around the corner, terrified looks in their eyes. "Nate, get the fuck up!" Spencer screamed at me, reaching out a hand and almost tearing my arm out of my socket as he wrenched me to my feet. "Run!" Oh, I didn't question him. I just ran. I ran after the two as the ominous, terrifying sound of whispering, laughing and screaming began filtering down from the hallway that they'd emerged from. And it scared me almost more than anything how pissed it sounded. More than when they'd caught us trying to sabotage the engines. We sprinted for the stairs, taking them down two at a time and only able to think about staying a step ahead of our pursuers. I don't know how long we ran, only that I was only able to keep going from the sheer amount of adrenaline that kept filling me. That and the image of Vinny being dragged into the theatre to a fate I can only pray was quick. We headed for the only place we knew, our cabin. When we slammed inside, we shut it, locked it, and proceeded to pile as much furniture in the room against it, trying to make what was likely a futile barricade, but one nevertheless. It was the only thing we could think to do. When we'd finished, I turned to the two men. What the fuck happened? What the fuck happened? I was demanding now. For a moment, neither of them said anything. And then Andrew spoke, his voice shaking. We got to the observation lounge. We found a shit ton of alcohol at the bar and started making Molotovs. We were halfway done when the voice came. The voice we heard in the stairs that day. He turned pale. We turned and we found ourselves staring at him. Who's him? I pressed. Him. The captain of the ship. He was dressed in an old captain's outfit. He wagged a finger at us and said it wasn't worth trying. That's all it would do is make them do to us what they did to Wyatt. So we lit and threw a bottle at him at the floor. Spencer spoke up. Nate, it did nothing. It hit the floor and lit up for like 1 second, and then it was as if it reversed. The flame disappeared, and then he said he was angry. He swallowed. His eyes turned black, and we ran. He looked down at the floor, unable to speak anymore. There was silence in the room. What happened to Vinny? Andrew finally asked. My eyes flashed up to him and I felt the heat of rage burn in my stomach. I wanted to scream at him, to strike him like he'd done to me, but I held it back as I saw the look in his eyes. He was broken, and so I simply answered, he didn't make it. At my words, I saw both men's shoulders slump. We're not getting out of here alive, are we? Spencer choked out. I took a deep breath and then spoke. My voice calm and authoritative, like the captain had always spoken. We're getting out of here tomorrow. We're going to plan, and tomorrow we're getting off this damn ship. Or we're gonna die trying. I didn't say the last part out loud, but I didn't have to. And so, as the sun began to set again on the horizon we planned, they're asleep now. Both passed out on the bed, but not after each went into the bathroom for a few minutes. I could hear them softly crying to themselves. Part of my heart felt for them, but another still burned with the fire and hatred of 1,000 suns. If it hadn't been for their harebrained idea, everything that happened today would have... If Andrew hadn't punched me, if I wouldn't have stormed off, unable to think straight, I wouldn't have got into the theatre and Vinny would still be alive. But as much as it kills me inside to say, I'm as much to blame as they are. I should have been more level-headed. I shouldn't have let my emotions get the better of me, and part of me thinks I should have just let the figures take me instead. Vinny, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I'm staring out the porthole now as I type this out. I watch the moon rise in the sky and glimmer off the waves. It's all I feel like I can do now, but I know I have to pull myself together before dawn if I want to have any chance to escape off the Queen Elizabeth alive. And there's no choice but for it to be tomorrow, because as I sit here typing this, another programme was jammed underneath the cabin door, flying under our barricade. When I flicked on my flashlight, I saw that someone had written in black ink at the bottom, "For Nathan only." When I flipped it open, I noted two things. The first was that the date on this one doesn't say 2023 like the last one. The date says Monday, June 25th. 1956. The second is the first notice at the top of the left page, 2 days until arrival in New York City. If you have not already brought your travel papers to the purser's office, please do it no later than 4 p.m. tomorrow evening. Thank you. I honestly don't know if the words that Dana told me are true or not. About the past never dying, but simply moving to a different dimension where it never changes, where the world stays stuck forever in one time period, endlessly repeating over and over for eternity. But I honestly don't want to know. The idea of such a world horrifies me, almost worse than everything we've been through. And I think if she's right, and if we don't escape tomorrow, the New York City we'll arrive in, it won't be ours. So I'm going to try and rest. The music's beginning again from the lounge. It's not a big band song this time, but it's a love ballad, a song my grandfather used to sing to my grandma, Earth Angel by the Penguins. As much as I dread the nightmares that are going to come, seeing Vinny be taken, I need my rest. I need as much of it as I can get if we're going to carry out the plan. Dump all the lifeboards off the starboard side of the ship, then leap off the stern, far enough from the propellers where we won't be sucked in, and swim for them, and hopefully make it back to land. I'm not going to ask for you guys for advice this time. This is the one time I don't think you can help us. I can never thank you enough for all of you, for you've helped us and you've kept us going when we didn't have a clue of what to do, listening to us and giving us advice. You've given us more than advice, though. You've given us the hope to keep going. It's that tiny connection to the world, to sanity, to everything good. I know you are all wonderful people, and I'm so indebted to you for life, but now this part we have to do on our own. But if we don't make it, thank you. Thank you for helping us, giving us a fighting chance at least. I do ask just one thing though. Wish us luck.